Welcome to this presentation. My name is Gentil Samboura, and I'm here to announce the retirement of the Goma Stake Pool. It has been over 2 years since we launched the Goma Stake Pool, and now we are kind of retiring it based on the mostly the lack of delegation, but also I will highlight a few aspects as to why myself I did not invest too much into it after the mid-launch. So I have a few proof of points on the reflection on the Cardano and, of course, the future of the African blockchain infrastructure, which I hoped validators will be doing on Cardano if we were to be able to get African validators on the blockchain. First of all, of course, Cardano is quite a big part of my experience on the blockchain. It introduced me to decentralized governance, and also I learned a lot about smart contracts and also stake pool operation through the Goma Stake Pool, as well as the role of the community within the blockchain. And I thank everybody within the Cardano community, and myself, I'm still a member. The stake pool is retiring, but I'm still in Cardano as everybody else. So why close the Goma Stake Pool? Of course, we know that hosting a stake pool already within the African continent is hard. We did try bare metal with a server, and at the end itself became costly due to increasing fees and the cost. And then, of course, the priorities within the Cardano ecosystem also changed, and they were no longer aligning with promoting the use of Cardano within the African continent. So that made that the challenges faced by Africans were mostly unresolved, i.e. the technological limitations, as well as the technical support and other support to make the ecosystem grow on the continent. And of course, another element beyond the stake pool is the overall usage on the Cardano blockchain. There was no clear on-ramping and off-ramping. Users still have to go through the centralized exchanges. And in Africa, people are not basically connected already. So it's like asking somebody who is unbanked to go through a bank to send to Binance and then get it back into a bank account is just not feasible. And also, of course, buying and spending it was remaining a difficulty for many African users because, of course, the community itself was not spending. So, and it's still not spending, so there was no really example of how to spend and how to build a community around the spending of ADA. The governance as well became a bit tricky. We saw it through the proposals, be it Catalyst, be it any other way of expressing opinion. It's quite heavily influenced by the token ownership, so meaning the larger wallets were able to push the voting direction regardless of how good or bad or clear a proposal could have been. So that's an expected outcome. It's natural for human being to be familiar and more lenient towards the people they know. But that, of course, made that the African voice became more and more a peripheral component of the ecosystem because, of course, the capital as well was not available on the continent, meaning by definition they cannot express themselves. It's the whole I know you, but I don't know you. So it's natural. It was expected. I think within 2 years I noticed that that's the ultimate outcome. The community itself kept evolving, and of course, when they had found up to found maybe five, there was still a lot of newcomers beginning, and the community was kind of open into how many people can join and can participate. With time, established participants becoming the dominant factors. So those were already successful, stayed successful, and they were basically pulling all the oxygen within any voting cycle because, of course, people are voting by familiarity. Elections, by definitions, are a popularity contest. So if you are already disenfranchised, you are kind of on the peripheral. You are by definition not visible. It is clear that you will not be the one to be heard, and that, of course, established the established participants to gain more and more power, which ultimately even switched the priorities within the Cardano ecosystem, which was mostly focusing on the demands and the needs of the wallet holders and the larger wallet holders. And of course, the Cardano also image was a bit kind of confusing because the public vision has always been to push for financial inclusion, but within the ecosystem itself, financial inclusion was the obstacle. So, and on the ground reality, myself, I could observe that there's kind of a disconnect between what is said and what is done. I had looked into what are the resources that would be available, what people were doing. For example, Emurgo had a was it 100 million, 150 million investment fund proposed. I think that information went live, but within a week it was taken down. So that 150 million, 100 million never materialized in Africa. So it's one of those things that the public expression is one way, but in reality, there's no focus on the African continent itself in practical terms. So that's what also made any involvement with Cardano a bit challenging as an African, but as a normal person, of course, I will continue to participate, and I'm still an ADA holder, and continue to promote the community as well. The African question, of course, is always it was at the center. I don't know if it still is, but at least when I joined, that's why it was, and that's why I kind of pushed for it to have an impact because I knew that Africa was the place where the blockchain could be inevitable, and not because they already need it, high inflation, low penetration of the banking system. So it's the place where the blockchain could have grown, become a little boy, grow up, become stronger, and then become unavoidable and very much the go-to in terms of resources. But again, the priority was presented as strategic priority, but the implementation on the ground did not meet expectation. Like as I said, the whole investment proposal never went through, and even in terms of funding, be it through the catalyst proposals, be it through the visibility through the summits, the Africa proposal was still like second thoughts. Like I remember when we organized the summit, I think we could not even get the kits for the summit in Africa because, of course, the conception was that people are going to use shipping companies and you cannot just ship everything because the expectation is not Africa, right? So it's like somebody is maybe in Europe, they know they can ship something from one place to another in 1 day or 2 days, and then do the same to Ghana, to Goma, to Congo or Kenya. It takes weeks, and by the time those shipments arrived, there's a whole logistic around them. Most of the stuff sent, I'm not even sure if they're still at the airports or at the ports. They were basically seized, no follow up. So it was kind of funny. Yes, and the investment within the ecosystem also has changed. There is a lot of need to build the infrastructure, the distribution, and the in Africa the challenge, of course, is the whole infrastructure. There are not many data centers. There are not many. The speed, the latency of the connections is kind of not as good as elsewhere. So already by that means it's kind of hard to participate. But even the announcement themselves, so they were still being made, like the Ethiopia, the IDs, and all the other announcement around African participation was good, but of course it requires some investment, infrastructure. For example, there was no neobank on the African continent, and I think it's one of the key missing elements for adoption is the ability to on ramp and off ramp, and there are many methods that you can go about it relatively cheaply. I think 3 years ago I had estimated that with 15 million, we can establish a digital bank, which can be almost a key competitor on the market in Africa within a few years. So, and it's still kind of the same. The amounts could have increased because central banks increased the deposits required, but still the idea is that it's still the most accessible market for digital banking. The regulation and the financial freedom, yes. So I kind of think that when I hear what Cardano is aiming to become, it's more like a regulated, regulation-friendly blockchain. And it's kind of also hard because the reason why people are unbanked is because the rule, of course, do not apply to them. For example, you have to the KYC, for example, it's a big hassle. When the government does not give you an ID and then expects you to have it when you're going to open a bank account, if the government should not give you, and the opacity, the lack of transparency, that is done on purpose for to facilitate corruption. It's not because they cannot print cards. It's not because they cannot put registries. No, it's because the transparency is the enemy of corruption. So they don't want to do that. And Cardano, by focusing on regulation in the developed world, it makes sense. Actually, I do think actually it's not possible not to be regulated when you expect to be in the space of a powerful nation. However, I do think that the blockchain is not meant to be regulated for two reasons. First, if you issue tokens, i.e., currencies, you're already in opposition to a political entity, which is the state, which issues its own tokens, its own fiat. So those two cannot coexist. You cannot basically come in and remove the power of a politician who was voted to only have the power to issue currency, control financial flows, and you come and say, you know what, I'm going to kind of make it so that it becomes free, it becomes transparent, it becomes auditable. No politician will appreciate that. Maybe a king actually could potentially appreciate because they control it, so they can actually accept. But a politician who has to be elected, no, that's the only power they have. So the whole being regulated in the blockchain, no, unless you are big and you establish yourself in countries and they welcome you as is, the same way now the big tech companies are, they're unavoidable. You cannot basically say, oh, I'm going to get off Microsoft. Well, you can't. The blockchain could be the same, but it cannot be the same in developed nations. It has to start in poor nations and then grow from there until it grows and then becomes something that people did not see growing. And that's possible. But if you try to build blockchain in the developed nations, I think no, those are the nations now in the developed nations, they are like gods, right? So in the space, they destroy you by law. They destroy you. Like they can even make you not exist the next day. So those are two powerful entities for a blockchain which is still trying to find its foot. The technology on the Cardano blockchain is kind of funny because when you develop on Cardano, you think that the progress is fast. You go from plus to V1, you have to change the code. V2, you have to change again. V3, you again have to change to optimize anything. It takes every year you have to kind of change something, which is too fast for a developer. But on the community, people kind of say, oh, Cardano is slow. I'm like, hmm. Well, it's because, of course, those improvements are not directly put into practice, and what you are doing is only holding ADA. So, what else do you want to see if you're not actually utilizing the network? So, you cannot see that. And if you have to utilize it, the complexity comes in when you basically have utility. But if there is no, and you're holding ADA just for the sake of appreciation, you will not see it progress. But for developers, I can tell you, yes, the technology is advancing rapidly, but usage, of course, and adoption in terms of tooling and stuff is not. That's the key issue. And the representation is a black person, visible minority, they call us in North America. I can say token representation is kind of a bit funny because when you look into what is the representation on the Cardano blockchain is the wallet size. So the wallet size as an African community, the wallets are going to be small. So which means there are many good people on the Cardano blockchain who know that, and of course there are many communities that support as like people. If actually anybody as an individual, yes, everybody within the Cardano community, I think they know that. They know that there is a need to expand participation. However, human greed, I would say, or human tendencies tend to centralize around the key behaviors, which is accumulation, familiarity, proximity. So people will ask you, okay, will you go and participate in a summit in Goma? You kind of look at, okay, 16 hours of flight. Where Singapore, wow, Singapore, like Dubai, those are the places you'll go to. So that's clear and that's normal. However, representation needs to be kind of actively sought. And if it's based on the size of your wallet, then you've already missed the plot because people were new in the first place. So which means if you are talking about the token ownership as the way to represent yourself, then you won't be taking in newcomers. You won't be taking newcomers whatsoever. Yeah, so the Saffron chain. So I'm closing the Goma stake pool, retiring it, but I'm still on the crypto. I do believe that crypto has a role by necessity. There's no need to explain why people use crypto. I don't think so. It's by necessity people use it. Nigerians use crypto to save themselves, basically. So that's why the need to continue building exists. And me and a group of friends who also have built on Cardano are launching the Saffron Chain network, which is saffronchain.com, and it's based on the Cosmos SDK. The idea is to see what we learned on Cardano and strengthen existing economic activity in Africa that rely on the blockchain. So basically, to try and implement the blockchain on what we know exists. For example, community savings like the Safrimba, the Blikelemba, tontine as they say in French, different ways to call it, but basically people pool resources together and they save, and that has been existing in Africa for a while. And the only issue that is reducing the activities of those schemes is the trust, which sometimes gets eroded as communities become more modernized. People live in cities, they become less trustworthy. I don't know if modernity creates bad people, but people lose their connections. So the social capital decreases with modernity, which is expected. It happens in cities. People trust each other more in villages than in cities. So the blockchain can actually come and bring back that trust level, even in the city, actually expand it, make them even public so that people can even join those circles without knowing each other. So that's what we aim to do. So in order to make those applications Africa first, we are looking into what is used in Africa as a community and try and implement the blockchain on those. So that's one of the key dApps we are launching on Saffron Chain. Another progression of the blockchain, and especially those saving circles, is to progress into a digital bank. People will be receiving savings and also keep saving on chain. So ultimately, they will be wanting to both deposit and withdraw, redeem tokens in this case, which is a withdrawal. And by depositing and redeeming, they will be undergoing the processes that a bank will do as well. Not all banks are the same, but the process of collecting and giving away amounts of money are basically some attributes of banking. And through the Safrimba, through the Saffron Chain network, we expect that we'll be able to create that digital bank that actually I said was missing in Cardano, because if there is no bank to redeem and withdraw your crypto, you won't be using it in your community. So that's what we aim to do. Once the communities first do off-chain and only use the blockchain as a ledger, the next step is for them to use the blockchain also as the treasury. And then afterwards, once the circles become public, of course, they go and withdraw from an office. And that office, it's first of all a small community saving center, which will grow into a bank. And that's what we think that will be happening. And then that will be creating a seamless experience in off and off ramping and on ramping for users in the community. A final message, not so much final. It's final for this topic, but it's that Cardano, of course, is an important chapter in on the blockchain. We hope to make the African realities more applicable and also focused on them instead of focusing on the blockchain itself. We are not recreating the wheel. We are basically adapting the wheel to the realities of Africa and making the community at the center of our applications. For example, mobile transactions are very, very important in Africa, and without focusing on them, you will not be able to implement the potential of the blockchain. Saffron Chain has been 2 years in the making, for those who know me. So it has nothing to do with the current situation on the market. I know there's an up and down in the Cardano ecosystem. No, I do think that Cardano remains a strong proposal. The Cardano community is welcoming for the most part. I will say it's just a matter of what money does and what money has as a role in the community. So the individuals themselves cannot even fight it. Those are very powerful forces. and the rationality of a human being will tend to also take it that way. It's normal. That's why the world is the same way it is today. That's why people are unbanked. That's why people are poorer. That's why there are wars. It's the natural human being ability to experience, learn. So I do think that Cardano still has the potential to fulfill an aspect of the blockchain, be it at least on the theoretical side and on the proof of concept side. It's very much it. However, the presence of the blockchain in developed nations, I don't think it's actually viable because, of course, the power balance is too much towards the politician and not towards the developer. So there's no potentially no way any blockchain can establish itself in developed nations. So I do think that on Africa there's still a chance. We have to go fast. Then Stafremba has to launch, Safrachain has to launch, and that digital bank, once it's created, once it's spread in nations, then yes, then the crypto chain, the crypto network becomes inevitable. It becomes needed. It becomes an entity, and then the whole concept of sovereignty for the individual will actually be realized, because once you have your tokens in Congo and you can go and exploit them and use them in Ghana, then you are a free human being who is free from those political entities. Because I do think that political entities are just some type of private controlled entities, only individuals. The political parties are pretty much private. They interface with the public space only because of the border. Within that space, it's like they create a little prison for you. So the blockchain will free you of that, and ideally, we hope to play a part into it. And the financials behind Safra Chain, of course, it's a lot of calculations, a lot of math to go into how much, when, and how. So, yeah, I think that's also where a bit of our skills as an economist kind of thought about what the blockchain can do also in terms of increasing economic activity in Africa. So I do think that through Safra Chain, we'll be able to help increase some economic development in Africa. And again, Cardano also is potentially a remaining partner in this endeavor. Hopefully, we'll keep in touch. And thank you again for all the support of the Goma Stake Pool. It has been a good experience, which we take on for another journey. However, the key goal remains the same: push for sovereignty, push for financial inclusion, and push for user onboarding. So thank you very much, Cardano community, and we'll keep in touch. Merci beaucoup. Bye.